Good evening, fellow explorers of America's darkest places. Tonight, we journey to 6 locations where the boundaries between the living and the dead have been permanently shattered by acts of such evil, suffering so profound, or curses so powerful that these places have become forever contaminated by supernatural malevolence. These are not merely haunted houses or sites of isolated tragedies, but locations where evil has taken permanent root, creating zones of supernatural danger that continue to claim victims and terrify visitors decades or even centuries after the original horrors occurred. From the torture chamber mansion of New Orleans, where a sadistic socialite committed unspeakable acts, to cemeteries where the dead refuse to rest peacefully. From an alleged gateway to hell in rural Kansas, to the vast wilderness harboring a legendary demon, we'll explore 6 of America's most genuinely cursed locations. These are places where multiple witnesses across generations have experienced phenomena so consistent and so terrifying that they cannot be dismissed as mere folklore or imagination. What makes these locations particularly dangerous is not just their history of horror, but their continuing supernatural activity. These are not passive historical sites where the past has been safely contained. They are active zones of paranormal danger where visitors regularly experience encounters with malevolent forces, suffer unexplained injuries, and sometimes disappear without explanation. These stories are documented through historical records, police reports, paranormal investigations, and the testimony of thousands of witnesses who have experienced firsthand the supernatural malevolence that permeates these cursed grounds. They remind us that some places become so saturated with evil and suffering that they may never be cleansed, remaining permanently dangerous to the living who venture onto their cursed soil. Prepare yourself for an hour exploring America's most cursed and deadly locations, places where the supernatural doesn't merely haunt, but actively threatens, injures, and sometimes kills those unfortunate enough to enter their domains.
Story 1. The LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans Palace of Torture. In the heart of New Orleans' French Quarter, at 1140 Royal Street, stands an elegant 3-story mansion that once served as the setting for some of the most horrific acts of cruelty ever documented in American history. The LaLaurie Mansion, built in 1832, was home to Madame Marie Delphine McCarty LaLaurie, a wealthy socialite whose respectable public persona concealed a sadistic monster who tortured and enslaved people in ways so brutal that they shocked even the slavery-tolerant society of 1830s New Orleans. The mansion's elegant Greek Revival architecture and prime French Quarter location made it one of the most prestigious addresses in New Orleans. Madame LaLaurie and her physician husband, Dr. Louis LaLaurie, entertained the city's elite at lavish parties where champagne flowed freely and the finest foods were served by apparently well-treated enslaved servants. To the outside world, the LaLauries appeared to be model citizens of New Orleans society, wealthy, cultured, and benevolent toward their slaves. The truth, hidden behind the mansion's elegant facade, was so horrific that it would shock the nation and create a legacy of supernatural terror that continues to this day. The discovery of horror. On April 10, 1834, a fire broke out in the LaLaurie kitchen. According to historical accounts, the fire was deliberately set by an enslaved cook who was chained to the stove and chose to burn herself alive rather than continue enduring Madame LaLaurie's cruelty. As neighbors and firefighters responded to the blaze, they discovered something that would transform their understanding of the horrors occurring in their midst. When rescuers broke down the door to the LaLaurie Mansion's attic, they discovered a torture chamber of unimaginable cruelty. 7 enslaved people were found chained to walls, mutilated in ways that demonstrated both sadistic creativity and medical knowledge. The victims had been subjected to horrific medical experiments and torture sessions that had continued for months or even years. The conditions documented by witnesses who entered the attic that day were so disturbing that many newspapers of the era refused to print full details, citing the accounts as too horrific for public consumption. However, surviving records and witness testimonies describe victims with limbs broken and reset at grotesque angles, apparently as experiments in bone healing or simple acts of sadistic cruelty. People with holes drilled into their skulls, suggesting attempts at primitive brain surgery or torture designed to cause maximum suffering while keeping victims alive. Bodies bearing evidence of systematic starvation, with some victims appearing skeletal despite having been healthy when they disappeared into the LaLaurie attic months earlier. Victims whose mouths had been sewn shut, whose eyes had been gouged out, or who had been subjected to other mutilations designed to deprive them of their senses and their humanity. One particularly horrific discovery was a woman whose arms and legs had been broken and reset in ways that caused them to resemble crab legs, forcing her to move by crawling on all fours. Another victim had been subjected to crude sex change experiments that demonstrated both Madame LaLaurie's medical knowledge, likely learned from her physician husband, and her complete lack of human empathy. The mob and Madame LaLaurie's escape. News of the attic discoveries spread rapidly through New Orleans, and within hours an angry mob had gathered outside the LaLaurie Mansion. The crowd, which included both free people of color and white citizens horrified by the cruelty, demanded that Madame LaLaurie be turned over for immediate justice. However, Madame LaLaurie and her husband managed to escape in their carriage, fleeing through the mob and making their way to the waterfront, where they boarded a ship bound for France. Despite reward offers and extensive searches, Madame LaLaurie was never captured or returned to face justice for their crimes. She reportedly lived out her life in Paris, dying in 1849 without ever expressing remorse for her actions.
The mansion itself became a target of the mob's rage. Crowds broke into the building, destroying furniture, smashing fixtures, and attempting to tear down the structure that had housed such evil. The building survived the mob's attack, but it was left badly damaged and gained an immediate reputation as being haunted by the tortured souls of Madame LaLaurie's victims. The supernatural legacy. From the moment of the attic's discovery, the LaLaurie Mansion has been recognized as one of America's most intensely haunted locations. The supernatural activity began immediately and has continued without interruption for nearly 2 centuries, making it one of the longest documented active hauntings in American history. The phenomena reported at the mansion encompass virtually every category of paranormal activity. The tortured spirits. The most frequently reported supernatural encounters involve the apparitions of enslaved people, showing signs of the torture they endured. Witnesses describe seeing figures with mutilated bodies, missing limbs, or bearing wounds that match the documented injuries inflicted by Madame LaLaurie. These spirits appear throughout the mansion, but concentrate in the attic where the torture chamber was located. Visitors report hearing screams, moans, and pleas for help coming from the upper floors. Sounds so realistic and disturbing that many people have called police, convinced that living people are being tortured in the building. The spirits seem trapped in their final moments of suffering, eternally reliving the torture that claimed their lives or destroyed their sanity. Some witnesses report that the apparitions seem to be asking for help, reaching out to the living, as if they believe rescue is still possible nearly 2 centuries after their deaths. Madame LaLaurie's spirit. Perhaps most disturbing are the reports of Madame LaLaurie herself haunting the mansion. Her spirit has been seen throughout the building, often appearing as an elegant woman in 1830s dress, still playing the role of gracious hostess that concealed her true nature in life. However, witnesses who encounter Madame LaLaurie's spirit report that her eyes betray her true nature, cold, cruel, and devoid of empathy. Some psychic investigators claim that her spirit shows no remorse for her actions and continues to view the enslaved people she tortured as possessions rather than human beings. The presence of Madame LaLaurie's unrepentant spirit, alongside those of her victims, creates a horrific spiritual dynamic where the torture victim and torturer are forever bound together in the location where such evil occurred. Some paranormal researchers believe this creates a kind of supernatural reenactment, with the spirits eternally playing out their historical roles of victim and victimizer. Physical manifestations and attacks. The LaLaurie Mansion is known for particularly aggressive and physical paranormal activity. Visitors and residents have reported being pushed, scratched, or struck by invisible forces, often in the attic area where the torture occurred. Experiencing sudden overwhelming feelings of pain, terror, or suffocation that seem to echo the suffering experienced by Madame LaLaurie's victims. Finding unexplained bloodstains on floors and walls that appear overnight and cannot be removed through normal cleaning methods. Hearing the sounds of chains rattling, doors slamming, and footsteps running through the building as if reenacting the desperate escape attempts of the tortured victims. Equipment malfunctions and battery drains that are so consistent and severe that professional paranormal investigation teams have difficulty maintaining their recording equipment during investigations. The curse on occupants. The LaLaurie Mansion has had a troubled history of ownership, with numerous residents reporting supernatural terror that drove them from the property. The building has served various purposes over the decades: apartments, a school for girls, a bar, and private residences. But every use has been plagued by paranormal activity and often ended in financial ruin or personal tragedy for those involved. Several patterns have emerged in the experiences of mansion occupants.
Business ventures in the building consistently fail, regardless of the quality of the business plan or the dedication of the owners. The mansion seems to resist any attempt to profit from its notoriety or to normalize its cursed atmosphere. Residents and workers frequently experience nightmares, psychological disturbances, and health problems that resolve when they leave the property, suggesting that the mansion's supernatural atmosphere has direct negative effects on physical and mental well-being. Some occupants have reported being unable to leave the mansion even when they desperately want to, finding themselves drawn back to the building or financially trapped in leases and mortgages that prevent escape. Modern investigations and continuing activity. The LaLaurie Mansion has been investigated by virtually every prominent paranormal research team in America, with consistent results supporting the reality of intense supernatural activity. Modern investigations using sophisticated equipment have documented electronic voice phenomena featuring voices speaking in French and English, often pleading for help or describing torture in graphic terms. Thermal imaging showing human-shaped cold spots moving through rooms, particularly in the attic torture chamber area. Electromagnetic field readings showing massive spikes that suggest the presence of multiple entities throughout the building. Full-spectrum photography capturing apparitions that appear to be enslaved people in period clothing, often showing signs of physical trauma and mutilation. The mansion today. Today, the LaLaurie Mansion operates as a private residence and is not open for public tours, though its notorious reputation ensures a constant stream of tourists photographing the exterior and ghost hunters hoping to catch glimpses of the supernatural activity that occurs within. The current owners maintain strict privacy and rarely discuss any paranormal experiences, though staff and visitors occasionally share accounts that suggest the supernatural activity continues unabated. The mansion's value as a historic property is offset by its reputation as a place of evil, creating complex dynamics for anyone brave or foolish enough to claim ownership. Local tour companies include the LaLaurie Mansion in their ghost tours, standing outside to relate the building's horrific history to groups of fascinated tourists. The mansion has become emblematic of New Orleans' dark history and its reputation as one of America's most haunted cities. The lasting horror. The LaLaurie Mansion stands as a monument to human cruelty and its supernatural consequences. The building represents a case where evil so profound occurred that it permanently contaminated the location, creating paranormal activity that has persisted for nearly 2 centuries and shows no signs of diminishing. The mansion serves as a reminder that slavery's horrors extended beyond forced labor and family separation to include sadistic torture and murder, and that the suffering inflicted by enslavers like Madame LaLaurie has left spiritual wounds that may never heal.
For paranormal researchers, the LaLaurie Mansion represents a textbook example of how extreme human cruelty can create lasting supernatural consequences. The torture and murder that occurred within its walls seem to have created a spiritual imprint so powerful that the victim's suffering continues to manifest nearly 2 centuries later, trapping their spirits in eternal torment at the site of their deaths. The LaLaurie Mansion remains one of America's most cursed locations, a place where unspeakable evil occurred and where that evil continues to manifest in ways that terrify and harm the living who enter its domain. It stands as perhaps the most compelling evidence that some crimes are so horrific that they echo through eternity, creating haunted locations where the past never truly becomes past, and where the dead cannot find peace.
Story 2. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Illinois' portal to the afterlife. In the southwestern suburbs of Chicago, hidden within the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve, lies a small, abandoned cemetery that has earned the reputation as one of the most haunted locations in America. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, officially known as Everden Cemetery, covers less than 1 acre, but has been the site of thousands of reported paranormal encounters that encompass virtually every type of supernatural phenomenon documented by researchers. The cemetery was established in 1844 to serve German immigrants settling in the area, and for nearly a century it functioned as a typical small rural burial ground. The last official burial occurred in 1989, though the cemetery had fallen into disrepair and abandonment decades earlier. Today, the graveyard is a tangle of overgrown vegetation, toppled tombstones, and vandalized monuments surrounded by dense forest that creates an atmosphere of isolation and decay perfect for paranormal activity. What makes Bachelor's Grove particularly fascinating to paranormal researchers is not just the volume of supernatural encounters reported there, but the variety and consistency of the phenomena. The cemetery has become a kind of supernatural showcase where nearly every type of paranormal manifestation occurs with remarkable frequency, making it an ideal location for studying how different types of hauntings might coexist in a single location. The history of tragedy and desecration. Bachelor's Grove's reputation for supernatural activity is rooted in a history of tragedy, violence, and desecration that began long before the cemetery's establishment. The land was originally inhabited by Potawatomi people, and local Native American traditions hold that the area was considered cursed or spiritually dangerous long before European settlement. During the cemetery's operational period, it became associated with numerous tragedies. Several people were buried in the cemetery after dying under violent or mysterious circumstances, including victims of the Chicago gang wars during Prohibition, whose bodies were allegedly dumped in the lagoon adjacent to the cemetery. The nearby lagoon claimed multiple drowning victims over the decades, with bodies sometimes not recovered for days or weeks. Some of these victims were buried in Bachelor's Grove, while others were simply never found, their spirits potentially wandering the area searching for rest. During the 1960s and 1970s, the abandoned cemetery became a target for vandals, satanic cult activity, and grave desecration. Tombstones were overturned, graves were opened, and occult symbols were painted on monuments. This desecration is believed by many paranormal researchers to have intensified the supernatural activity, as if the disrespect shown to the dead
angered the spirits and increased their manifestations. The White Lady, Bachelor's Grove's most famous ghost. The most frequently reported and photographed apparition at Bachelor's Grove is the White Lady, or Madonna of Bachelor's Grove, the spirit of a woman in white who has been seen by hundreds of witnesses and captured in what many researchers consider one of the most compelling ghost photographs ever taken. The White Lady appears as a young woman dressed in a white dress or gown, often carrying a baby in her arms. She wanders through the cemetery, seemingly searching for something or someone, and appears most frequently on nights with full moons. Her identity remains uncertain, with various theories proposing she might be
a woman buried in the cemetery along with her infant child, both having died during childbirth or shortly after. The spirit of a woman whose baby drowned in the adjacent lagoon, eternally searching for her lost child. An entirely non-human entity that has taken the form of a grieving mother to elicit sympathy from witnesses while concealing its true nature. In 1991, members of the Ghost Research Society captured a famous photograph showing a translucent woman in white sitting on a gravestone in Bachelor's Grove. The photograph has been extensively analyzed by photo experts and paranormal researchers, with most concluding that it shows a genuine anomaly rather than a hoax or camera malfunction. The figure appears to be solid enough to cast shadows and reflect light, yet is also clearly transparent, showing cemetery features visible through her body. Witnesses who encounter the White Lady report varying experiences. Some describe her as appearing sad and non-threatening, merely wandering through the cemetery, lost in her own grief. Others report more disturbing encounters where she approaches witnesses directly, sometimes speaking in inaudible whispers or making gestures as if asking for help. The Phantom Farmhouse. One of Bachelor's Grove's most bizarre paranormal phenomena is the appearance of a full-scale phantom building, a two-story white farmhouse that manifests completely formed, remains visible for several minutes, and then slowly fades away or simply vanishes instantly. The Phantom Farmhouse has been reported by dozens of independent witnesses over several decades, with descriptions remaining remarkably consistent. Witnesses describe a well-maintained White House with a front porch, glowing windows suggesting lights inside, and sometimes even smoke rising from the chimney. The house appears solid and real enough that some witnesses have attempted to approach or enter it, only to have it vanish as they draw near. No historical records show that such a farmhouse ever existed at the exact location where the phantom building appears, though there were several farms in the general area during the 19th century. Paranormal researchers are divided on what the Phantom Farmhouse represents. Some believe it's a residual haunting, a kind of psychic recording of a building that once existed in the area, replaying itself periodically due to the high supernatural energy concentration at Bachelor's Grove. Others theorize that it might be a portal or window into another time or dimension, showing a building that exists in a parallel reality but occasionally becomes visible in our world. The most disturbing theory suggests that the Phantom Farmhouse is a trap or lure created by malevolent entities designed to draw curious witnesses towards some supernatural danger that awaits those who attempt to enter the non-existent building. The phantom vehicles and glowing lights. The road that passes by Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, officially named Middle Lothian Turnpike, but locally known as Bachelor's Grove Road,
has been the site of numerous encounters with phantom vehicles and mysterious lights that demonstrate apparent intelligence and sometimes interact aggressively with living witnesses.
The phantom vehicles appear as vintage cars and trucks from various eras, most commonly from the 1930s to 1950s. These ghostly vehicles travel along the road, sometimes pacing living drivers, other times appearing suddenly as if about to cause a collision before vanishing at the moment of impact. One particularly well-documented phenomenon is the appearance of a phantom black car that pursues vehicles on the road, following at high speeds before suddenly disappearing. Several witnesses have reported this vehicle forcing them off the road or causing accidents, suggesting malevolent intent rather than merely residual haunting activity. The mysterious lights at Bachelor's Grove appear as glowing orbs or balls of light that float through the cemetery and surrounding forest. These lights demonstrate behaviors suggesting intelligence. They appear to respond to human presence, approaching witnesses who call out to them or fleeing from aggressive investigators. They sometimes gather in groups, moving in coordinated patterns as if communicating or working together. They have been photographed and filmed extensively, with some footage showing lights that appear to pass through solid objects like trees and tombstones without changing speed or direction. Some paranormal researchers believe these lights might be spirit manifestations, the essence of deceased individuals appearing in energy form rather than as full apparitions. Others theorize they might be related to geological phenomena, with the combination of water from the nearby lagoon and a particular mineral composition of the soil creating conditions favorable to unexplained light manifestations. The hooded monks and ritual activity. Among the more disturbing phenomena reported at Bachelor's Grove are encounters with robed, hooded figures that witnesses describe as resembling monks or cult members. These figures have been seen performing rituals at various locations throughout the cemetery, often near particular graves or at the cemetery's center. The hooded figures appear to be semi-transparent or composed of shadow, making it difficult to discern details of their appearance or actions. Witnesses report feeling overwhelming sensations of dread when encountering these entities, and some have experienced physical symptoms, including nausea, dizziness, and temporary paralysis. The connection between these hooded figures and actual occult activity at the cemetery remains unclear. It's known that Bachelor's Grove was used for satanic rituals and occult practices during the 1960s and 1970s, with law enforcement documenting evidence of animal sacrifices and ritualistic vandalism. Whether the hooded figures are spirits of cult practitioners who performed rituals at the cemetery, or whether they represent something more ancient and non-human, remains a matter of speculation. The animal spirits and supernatural creatures. Bachelor's Grove is home to reports of various animal apparitions and supernatural creatures that don't fit conventional biological classifications. A large black dog with glowing red eyes has been seen patrolling the cemetery's perimeter, consistent with hellhound legends found in various cultures. The creature is described as being larger than any normal dog and demonstrating intelligence beyond typical canine capacity. A two-headed phantom that witnesses struggle to describe has been reported on multiple occasions, appearing as a humanoid figure with two distinct heads or faces.
This entity reportedly emanates extreme evil and causes intense fear in witnesses. Various bird and small animal spirits that appear to be normal wildlife until they demonstrate impossible abilities, such as passing through solid objects, appearing and disappearing instantly, or maintaining eye contact with witnesses while moving in ways that defy physics.
The presence of these supernatural creatures alongside human spirits suggests that Bachelor's Grove might function as a nexus or portal where various types of entities can manifest, rather than being merely a haunted cemetery in the conventional sense. Modern investigation and ongoing activity. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery has been investigated more extensively than almost any other haunted location in America, with dozens of professional paranormal research teams conducting long-term studies using sophisticated equipment. The cemetery has yielded remarkable evidence, including thousands of photographs showing unexplained anomalies, from clear apparitions to mysterious mists and unexplained lights. Hours of video footage documenting objects moving by themselves, shadows that move independent of light sources, and what appear to be full-body apparitions captured on thermal imaging cameras. Extensive electronic voice phenomena recordings featuring voices speaking in English, German, and unknown languages, often responding directly to investigators' questions in ways suggesting genuine communication with intelligent entities. Instrumental readings showing electromagnetic field spikes, temperature anomalies, and other physical effects that coincide temporally with witnessed paranormal phenomena, suggesting that supernatural manifestations are accompanied by measurable changes in the physical environment. The cemetery today. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is officially closed to public access, though it remains accessible through trails in the surrounding forest preserve. The cemetery is monitored by both Forest Preserve rangers and paranormal investigators who have established an informal guardianship over the site. Despite official restrictions, the cemetery continues to attract thousands of visitors annually, including serious paranormal researchers, thrill-seeking teenagers, and people genuinely hoping to communicate with the dead. The concentration of human attention and emotional energy may actually contribute to the supernatural activity, creating a feedback loop where visitation increases manifestations, which in turn attract more visitors. The Cook County Forest Preserve has attempted to restore and protect the cemetery, but vandalism and ongoing paranormal activity have made preservation efforts challenging. Tombstones that are uprighted and repaired are often found toppled again within days, sometimes in patterns suggesting intelligent placement rather than random vandalism. The supernatural gateway theory. Many paranormal researchers who have extensively studied Bachelor's Grove believe it functions as a portal or gateway, a location where the barrier between the world of the living and the realm of the dead becomes exceptionally thin. This would explain the variety of paranormal phenomena observed there, encompassing virtually every type of supernatural manifestation documented by researchers. The consistency and frequency of encounters, with multiple witnesses often experiencing simultaneous phenomena from different vantage points. The apparent ability of various types of entities to manifest there, from human spirits
to non-human entities to creatures that don't fit any conventional classification. The sense reported by sensitive visitors that the cemetery exists simultaneously in multiple states or dimensions, with the physical world overlapping with other realities in ways that create opportunities for supernatural manifestation. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery remains one of America's most important paranormal research locations, offering continuing opportunities to study genuine supernatural phenomena in a concentrated area. It stands as proof that some locations become permanent windows between worlds, where the dead and the living can interact in ways that defy conventional understanding of reality, and where the mysteries of life, death, and what lies beyond remain tantalizingly visible to those brave enough to seek them.
Story 3.
Stull Cemetery, Kansas's gateway to hell. In the rolling farmlands of northeastern Kansas, approximately 10 miles west of Lawrence, lies a small rural cemetery that has earned one of the most terrifying reputations in American folklore. Stull Cemetery, officially known as the Evangelical Emmanuel Church Cemetery, covers less than an acre, but has become legendary as one of the 7 gateways to hell, a place where Satan himself allegedly appears twice each year, and where the boundary between our world and the infernal realms is dangerously thin. The tiny community of Stull, Kansas, barely qualifies as a town. At its peak, it had fewer than 20 residents, and today it consists of only a handful of occupied homes scattered across the rural landscape. Yet this obscure location has attracted international attention, drawn thousands of curiosity seekers and paranormal investigators, and inspired warnings from the Catholic Church itself about the genuine spiritual dangers present at this cursed ground. The cemetery's notoriety exploded in the 1970s when an article in a University of Kansas student newspaper claimed that Stull was one of the 2 places on Earth where Satan appears in physical form twice each year, once on the spring equinox and once on Halloween night. While the origins of this claim remain murky, the legend captured public imagination and transformed an obscure rural cemetery into one of America's most famous supernatural locations. The legend and its origins. The Stull legend comprises multiple interconnected elements that paint a picture of a location cursed from its foundations. The church that once stood in the cemetery was allegedly built by servants of Satan, with its walls incorporating ashes and bones mixed into the mortar, creating a structure literally built from death and dedicated to evil. The church's roof was said to have burned away during a mysterious fire, but rain would never fall inside the roofless structure, as if even nature refused to cleanse the cursed ground. A massive tree in the cemetery, known as the Hangman's Tree, was supposedly used for frontier-era executions and later became a site where witches were hanged during the colonial period, though Kansas wasn't settled during the witch trial era, making this historically impossible. According to legend, the tree developed supernatural properties, with ropes used for hangings occasionally reappearing on its branches, and the spirits of the executed appearing beneath its canopy. Beneath the cemetery lies a network of tunnels that supposedly descend deep into the earth, eventually reaching hell itself.
According to the most elaborate versions of the legend, Satan uses these tunnels to travel between the underworld and the surface, emerging in Stull Cemetery during his biannual visits to the physical world. The grave of a child fathered by Satan himself, born to a witch who lived in Stull during the 19th century. This devil's child allegedly died in infancy, but is buried in the cemetery, creating a blood connection between hell and the consecrated ground that permanently compromised the cemetery's spiritual protection. While historical verification for most of these claims is absent or contradictory, the power of the legend has created its own reality. Thousands of witnesses have reported supernatural encounters at Stull Cemetery, suggesting that, regardless of the legend's factual accuracy, something genuinely paranormal occurs at this location. The ruins of Emmanuel Church. At the heart of Stull Cemetery's supernatural reputation stood the ruins of Emmanuel Church, a stone structure that was built in 1867 to serve the German Lutheran immigrant community settling in the area. The church operated for several decades before being abandoned in the early 1900s as the congregation dwindled and residents moved away. The building slowly deteriorated over the following decades, eventually losing its roof to fire or decay. Accounts vary. The roofless church ruins became the focal point of supernatural activity and the centerpiece of Stull's legend as one of the 7 gateways to hell.
Witnesses reported the impossibility of burning the structure, with multiple attempts to destroy it by fire, resulting in flames that wouldn't catch or that would extinguish themselves without consuming the cursed stone walls. The absence of rain inside the roofless church, with witnesses reporting standing inside the ruins during thunderstorms and remaining completely dry while rain fell all around them. Supernatural phenomena intensifying near and inside the church ruins, including the appearance of shadowy figures, unexplained sounds, and overwhelming sensations of dread that caused visitors to flee in terror. Physical manifestations included objects moving by themselves, doors opening and closing when no doors remained in the structure, and the sensation of invisible hands pushing or grabbing visitors who entered the ruins. In 2002, the property owner, frustrated by constant trespassing and concerned about liability, demolished what remained of the church. However, this destruction appears to have done little to diminish the supernatural activity at the cemetery, and some paranormal investigators believe the demolition may have actually intensified the phenomena by disturbing whatever spiritual or demonic forces were anchored to the structure. The gateway theory and satanic appearances. The claim that Satan personally appears at Stull Cemetery twice each year, on the spring equinox and Halloween, has made these dates particularly popular for visits by paranormal investigators and thrill seekers. While no credible witness has reported seeing an entity definitively identified as Satan, numerous visitors during these key dates have reported extraordinary phenomena. Massive increases in paranormal activity around midnight on these dates, with electromagnetic field detectors registering off-scale readings and witnesses reporting an overwhelming sense of presence or being watched by something intelligent and malevolent. The appearance of dark, shadowy figures in and around the cemetery that witnesses describe as radiating evil and inspiring primal terror beyond what would be caused by encountering normal human intruders. unexplained lights, sounds, and atmospheric phenomena, including temperature drops of 20 to 30 degrees occurring within seconds, fog appearing suddenly in clear weather, and the smell of sulfur or rotting flesh with no apparent source. Physical effects on visitors, including sudden illness, inexplicable injuries appearing without cause, equipment malfunctions, and in some cases apparent demonic oppression or possession that required religious intervention to resolve. The Catholic Church has never officially confirmed the Stull Gateway legend, but the Archdiocese has acknowledged receiving inquiries about the location and has warned that visiting sites associated with demonic activity can expose individuals to genuine spiritual dangers, regardless of whether specific legendary details are historically accurate. The mass gatherings and law enforcement response. The legend of Stull Cemetery as a gateway to hell has attracted massive crowds on Halloween and the spring equinox, sometimes numbering in the thousands. These gatherings created significant problems for local law enforcement and residents. Douglas County Sheriff's Department has established a practice of closing the cemetery and surrounding roads on these key dates, posting deputies to prevent access and citing trespassing laws to turn away visitors. Despite law enforcement presence, hundreds of determined visitors often attempt to reach the cemetery through surrounding farmland, creating conflicts with property owners and occasionally resulting in arrests.
The crowds attracted to Stull have included not just curiosity seekers, but also practitioners of black magic and Satanism who allegedly conduct rituals at the cemetery. Law enforcement has documented evidence of animal sacrifices, occult symbols painted on tombstones, and other indications of dark magical practices being performed at the location. The massive crowds and accompanying vandalism, littering, and disrespectful behavior have traumatized the small community of Stull and created ongoing tensions between residents who want to be left in peace and the thousands of visitors drawn by the cemetery's dark reputation. Documented supernatural phenomena. Beyond the spectacular claims about Satan's appearances, Stull Cemetery has been associated with numerous documented paranormal encounters that suggest genuine supernatural activity occurs at the location. Photographic anomalies. Thousands of photographs taken at Stull show unexplained anomalies, including mists and fogs that appear in photographs but were not visible to the naked eye when the pictures were taken. Faces and figures appear in images of the cemetery, particularly in photographs of the former church ruins. Light anomalies, including orbs, streams of light, and other phenomena that appear to move with intelligence and purpose rather than being merely random camera artifacts. Electronic interference affecting digital cameras, with images becoming corrupted, batteries draining instantly, or equipment malfunctioning only to resume normal operation once removed from the cemetery property. Physical manifestations. Visitors to Stull consistently report physical phenomena that suggest an active supernatural presence. Cold spots that appear suddenly and move through the cemetery, sometimes following or surrounding witnesses as if intelligent entities were approaching them. The sensation of being touched, pushed, or grabbed by invisible hands, occasionally resulting in bruises or scratches that appear without any physical cause. Sounds including footsteps,
voices, and what some witnesses describe as growling or animal noises coming from areas where no physical source can be found. Equipment malfunctions affecting not just cameras, but also vehicles, phones, flashlights, and other electronic devices, with the malfunctions often resolving immediately upon leaving the cemetery property. Psychological and spiritual effects. Many visitors to Stull report experiencing profound psychological and spiritual effects that persist long after leaving the cemetery. Overwhelming feelings of dread, terror, or being watched that are disproportionate to the actual physical environment and cannot be rationally explained. Nightmares and disturbing dreams following visits to the cemetery, often featuring imagery of demons, hell, or being pursued by malevolent entities. Some individuals have claimed that visiting Stull opened them to supernatural influences they hadn't experienced before, making them sensitive to paranormal phenomena or attracting negative spiritual attention that followed them home.
The question of legitimacy. Paranormal researchers remain divided on whether Stull Cemetery's reputation is deserved or whether it represents an example of legend creating its own reality through the power of expectation and belief. Skeptics note that many elements of the Stull legend are historically inaccurate or impossible, that similar gateways to hell legends exist in numerous locations worldwide, and that the intense media attention and visitor traffic could be creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where expectation generates reported phenomena. Believers counter that the consistency of supernatural encounters reported by independent witnesses, the documented equipment malfunctions and photographic anomalies, and the genuine fear and spiritual oppression experienced by visitors all suggest that something genuinely paranormal occurs at Stull, regardless of whether the specific legendary details are accurate. The most balanced assessment suggests that Stull Cemetery may indeed be a location where supernatural activity occurs with unusual frequency, but that the elaborate legends about Satan's appearances and gateways to hell may be embellishments added to explain and dramatize genuine but less spectacular paranormal phenomena. The cemetery today. Today, Stull Cemetery remains officially closed to the public, with the property owner maintaining strict no-trespassing policies and local law enforcement ready to arrest anyone attempting to enter without permission. The demolition of the church ruins and the implementation of security measures have reduced but not eliminated the flood of visitors drawn by the location's dark reputation. The cemetery itself is small and unremarkable in appearance, a collection of weathered tombstones surrounded by farmland, distinguished only by its notoriety, rather than any obvious physical characteristics that would explain its supernatural reputation. Yet this ordinariness may be part of what makes Stull so unsettling, the contrast between its mundane appearance and the extraordinary claims made about it. Paranormal investigators who have managed to gain legitimate access to the cemetery continue to document unusual phenomena, although the difficulty of accessing the location has reduced the volume of investigation compared to more accessible haunted sites. The ongoing reports suggest that whatever supernatural forces operate at Stull remain active despite reduced human traffic and the destruction of the church ruins. The spiritual dangers. Religious authorities from various denominations have warned about the potential spiritual dangers of visiting locations with reputations for demonic activity. These warnings emphasize that even if specific legends are exaggerated, Treating such locations as entertainment or seeking supernatural encounters can expose individuals to genuine spiritual harm. Opening oneself to demonic influence through deliberate contact with locations associated with Satan or hell. Experiencing spiritual oppression or possession that requires exorcism or deliverance ministry to resolve. Attracting negative spiritual attention that follows individuals home and affects their lives, relationships, and well-being. Becoming desensitized to evil and gradually drawn deeper into darkness through repeated exposure to demonic forces. Whether Stull Cemetery is genuinely one of 7 gateways to hell or merely a rural graveyard that has been mythologized beyond its actual significance, the location serves as a reminder that some places develop reputations for spiritual danger that should be taken seriously by anyone considering visiting them. Stull Cemetery stands as one of America's most controversial cursed locations, a place where legend, genuine paranormal phenomena, and spiritual danger seem to intersect, creating a location that continues to fascinate, terrify, and warn us about the potential consequences of seeking encounters with the darkest aspects of the supernatural world.
Story 4: The Pine Barrens, New Jersey's Wilderness of Terror. Covering over 1.1 million acres of coastal plain in southern New Jersey, the Pine Barrens represent one of the largest areas of undeveloped wilderness in the densely populated northeastern United States. This vast expanse of pine forests, cedar swamps, and winding waterways has been home to human settlement since pre-colonial times, yet it remains largely wild and mysterious, harboring secrets in its depths that have given rise to one of America's most enduring cryptid legends and countless tales of supernatural terror. The Pine Barrens, also known as the Pinelands, are characterized by sandy, acidic soil that support specialized plant life, including pitch pine trees, Atlantic white cedar swamps, and dense understory vegetation. The region's waterways run dark with tannic acid, creating an otherworldly atmosphere of blackwater streams winding through ancient forests. The isolation, the difficult terrain, and the region's dark waters have created an environment where reality and legend blur together. At the heart of Pine Barrens folklore stands the Jersey Devil, a creature that has been reported by thousands of witnesses over more than 250 years, making it one of America's oldest and most consistently documented cryptid encounters. The Jersey Devil legend is so deeply embedded in New Jersey culture that the creature has become an unofficial state symbol, lending its name to sports teams and businesses while simultaneously serving as a source of genuine terror for those who claim to have encountered it in the Barrens depths. The Legend of Mother Leeds and the 13th Child. The Jersey Devil legend begins in 1735 in the Pine Barrens community of Leeds Point, now part of Atlantic County. According to the most common version of the story, a woman named Mother Leeds discovered she was pregnant with her 13th child. Already struggling to feed her existing 12 children, she was said to have cursed the unborn baby in a moment of desperation, crying out, "Let this one be a devil." According to legend, when the child was born during a thunderstorm, it initially appeared normal. However, moments after birth, the infant began to transform before the horrified eyes of the midwives and family members present. The body elongated and grew rapidly, developing leathery bat-like wings, a forked tail, cloven hoofs, and horse-like head with glowing red eyes. The transformed creature released an ear-piercing shriek, attacked everyone in the room, killing the midwives, according to some versions, and then flew up the chimney and escaped into the Pine Barrens, where it has dwelt ever since. While the Leeds family was real, Japheth Leeds was a prominent figure in colonial New Jersey. The supernatural birth story is likely apocryphal. However, something has been terrorizing residents of and visitors to the Pine Barrens for over 2.5 centuries, and the consistency of encounter descriptions across generations suggests that a real creature of unknown origin inhabits this vast wilderness.
Physical descriptions and characteristics. Witnesses who claim to have seen the Jersey Devil describe a creature with remarkably consistent physical characteristics. Body and size. The creature stands between 4 and 8 feet tall when upright, but is often seen on all fours. Its body is described as elongated and muscular, covered in dark fur or leathery skin that appears black or dark brown in most lighting conditions. Head. The most frequently described feature is a horse-like or ram-like head with a long snout, large teeth, and burning red or glowing yellow eyes that reflect light with unnatural intensity. Some witnesses report horns or antler-like protrusions from the creature's head. Wings. Large bat-like wings with a wingspan reported to be 10 to 15 feet, capable of powerful flight that allows the creature to take off from standing positions and achieve high speeds. The wings are described as leathery rather than feathered, suggesting mammalian rather than avian characteristics. Legs and feet. The hind legs are often described as being like those of a goat or horse, ending in cloven hooves that leave distinctive hoof-print tracks. The front legs are sometimes described as being more arm-like, with claw-tipped hands or paws. Tail. A long, forked or pointed tail, approximately 2 to 3 feet in length, that the creature uses for balance during flight, and possibly as a weapon when threatened. The voice of the Jersey Devil is one of its most distinctive and terrifying characteristics, described as a high-pitched shriek or wail that sounds like a combination of a woman's screaming and an animal's cry, audible for miles and capable of paralyzing witnesses with primal fear. The consistency of these descriptions across hundreds of independent witnesses spanning multiple centuries suggests that people are encountering something real rather than merely repeating a shared cultural legend. The Week of Terror, January 1909. The most dramatic and well-documented period of Jersey Devil activity occurred during 1 week in January 1909, when the creature was reportedly seen by thousands of people across New Jersey and neighboring states. This Week of Terror elevated the Jersey Devil from local folklore to national news and provided some of the most credible witness testimony in the creature's long history. Between January 16th and 23rd, 1909, newspapers across the region published dozens of reports from witnesses who claimed to have seen the Jersey Devil. The witnesses included police officers, government officials, business owners, and ordinary citizens from all walks of life. Many of these witnesses were initially skeptical of the legend, but became believers after their personal encounters. Key incidents from the Week of Terror include January 19, 1909, Bristol, Pennsylvania. Local residents reported hearing terrible screams during the night and discovered mysterious tracks in the snow the next morning. The tracks appeared to be made by cloven hooves and followed impossible paths, climbing over rooftops, jumping between buildings separated by impossible distances, and circling homes before disappearing.
January 19, 1909, Camden, New Jersey. A police officer named Louis Strayer fired his service revolver at a creature he encountered while on patrol. According to his official report, he hit the creature multiple times at close range, but it simply flew away, apparently unharmed, releasing a terrible scream as it departed. January 20th, 1909, various locations. Thousands of workers at factories throughout southern New Jersey refused to report for work, terrified by reports of the devil's presence. Some factories actually closed due to insufficient workforce, causing economic disruption that forced civic leaders to take the situation seriously. January 21st, 1909, multiple municipalities. Fire departments throughout southern New Jersey responded to reports of the Jersey Devil using fire hoses to drive away what witnesses described as a large winged creature that had landed on buildings and was terrorizing residents. In several instances, the creature appeared to withstand the water pressure without being injured or deterred. During this week, the Jersey Devil left physical evidence of his presence, including thousands of tracks in snow and mud showing cloven hooves in patterns that defied normal animal locomotion, including vertical climbs up walls and impossibly long jumps between landing points.
Chickens, small livestock, and domestic pets that had been killed and partially eaten in ways suggesting a large predator with both claws and teeth. Damage to property, including claw marks on walls and roofs, broken windows, and destroyed fences that witnesses reported seeing the creature. The week of terror ended as mysteriously as it began, with sightings dropping off sharply after January 23rd. However, the intense period of activity had permanently established the Jersey Devil as more than mere folklore, supported by multiple credible witnesses, physical evidence, and official reports from law enforcement and other authorities. Modern sightings and continuing encounters. While the 1909 Week of Terror represents the most concentrated period of Jersey Devil activity, sightings have continued regularly throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. Modern witnesses equipped with cameras, smartphones, and other recording technology have documented encounters that suggest the creature or creatures like it continue to inhabit the Pine Barrens. Notable modern encounters include 1960s to 1970s. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a large winged creature flying over the Garden State Parkway and New Jersey Turnpike, major highways that pass through or near the Pine Barrens. Several witnesses claimed the creature paced their vehicles, matching highway speeds, before breaking off pursuit and flying back toward the forest. 1993. A park ranger and forest fire warden named John Irwin reported encountering the Jersey Devil while fighting a wildfire in the Pine Barrens. According to his account, he saw a large, upright creature with glowing eyes observing the fire from a distance before flying away when other firefighters approached. 2015. A couple driving near Galloway Township captured photographs of what appeared to be a large bat-like creature flying over a golf course at dusk. The photographs went viral on social media and were analyzed by cryptozoologists, though skeptics suggested the images might show a large bird or flying fox rather than the Jersey Devil. 2019 to present.
trail cameras and security cameras in residential areas bordering the Pine Barrens have occasionally captured images of large, unidentified animals that some researchers believe might be evidence of Jersey Devil activity. While these images are typically unclear or ambiguous, they demonstrate ongoing interest in documenting the creature's presence. The Pine Barrens' other mysteries. While the Jersey Devil is the Pine Barrens' most famous supernatural resident, the vast wilderness is associated with numerous other paranormal phenomena and mysteries. Ghost towns and abandoned communities. The Pine Barrens are dotted with the ruins of former communities, including furnace towns, sawmill settlements, and farming villages that were abandoned when industries failed or resources were exhausted. These ghost towns are reported haunted by the spirits of former residents who refuse to leave their former homes. The Blue Hole, supposedly bottomless pool of water rumored to be so deep that it connects to the ocean despite being miles inland. Legend holds that the Blue Hole is cursed and that anyone who swims in it will be pulled under by supernatural forces and drowned. Mysterious lights. Witnesses regularly report seeing unexplained lights moving through the Pine Barrens at night, glowing orbs, floating lanterns, and other luminous phenomena that appear to move with intelligence and purpose. Some researchers connect these lights to the Jersey Devil, while others believe they represent separate supernatural phenomena. Disorientation and missing time. Hikers and drivers in the Pine Barrens frequently report becoming lost or disoriented despite having maps, GPS devices, and familiarity with the area. Some witnesses describe experiencing missing time, arriving at destinations hours later than should have been possible, given their route and speed, with no memory of the intervening period. The Pineys and local knowledge. The permanent residents of the Pine Barrens, sometimes called Pineys, have developed a complex relationship with the region's supernatural reputation. Many Piney families have lived in the Barrens for generations and possess extensive knowledge of the wilderness and its dangers, both natural and supernatural. Pineys generally treat the Jersey Devil and other supernatural phenomena with a pragmatic acceptance, viewing the creatures and spirits as part of the natural environment rather than as objects of fear or fascination. However, they maintain traditions and practices designed to avoid attracting the Jersey Devil's attention or angering the other supernatural forces that inhabit the wilderness. Common Piney wisdom about the Pine Barrens includes:
never venture deep into the Barrens alone after dark. If you hear the Jersey Devil's scream, seek shelter immediately and do not investigate the source of the sound. Respect the wilderness and the spirits that dwell there. Those who show disrespect or attempt to hunt the devil often meet with misfortune or worse. Certain areas of the Barrens are particularly dangerous and should be avoided entirely, as they are territories claimed by supernatural forces that tolerate no human intrusion. Scientific theories and explanations. Skeptics and scientists have proposed various theories to explain Jersey Devil sightings without invoking supernatural or cryptozoological explanations. Misidentified wildlife, large birds such as great blue herons or sandhill cranes seen in poor lighting or at a distance might be mistaken for a large winged creature.
However, this theory struggles to explain the consistent descriptions of horse-like heads, cloven hooves, and forked tails reported by witnesses. Survival of prehistoric species. Some cryptozoologists speculate that the Jersey Devil might be a surviving pterosaur or other prehistoric flying reptile, somehow persisting in the isolated Pine Barrens environment. While no physical evidence supports this theory, the vastness and remoteness of the Barrens could theoretically hide a small population of large animals. Hoaxes and mass hysteria. Skeptics note that the 1909 Week of Terror occurred during a slow news period and may have been partially fabricated or exaggerated by newspapers seeking to boost circulation. However, this theory doesn't explain the centuries of sightings before and after 1909, or the consistency of descriptions from independent witnesses. Interdimensional or supernatural entity. Paranormal researchers propose that the Jersey Devil might not be a biological creature at all, but rather a supernatural entity or cryptid that exists partially in another dimension, manifesting in our physical world periodically. This would explain its apparent invulnerability to bullets and its ability to appear and disappear seemingly at will. The Pine Barrens today. Today, the Pine Barrens remain largely undeveloped, protected by the 1978 National Parks and Recreation Act, which designated the region as the Pinelands National Reserve. The federal protection ensures that this vast wilderness will remain wild, providing habitat for whatever creatures, natural or supernatural, make their homes in its depths. The Jersey Devil has become an integral part of Jersey culture, inspiring sports team mascots, local businesses, tourist attractions, and annual festivals celebrating the state's most famous legendary creature. The town of Leeds Point hosts a Jersey Devil museum, and guided tours of supposedly haunted areas in the Pine Barrens attract thousands of visitors annually. Despite the commercialization and tourism, serious encounters with something genuinely mysterious continue to be reported from the Pine Barrens' remote areas. Witnesses who have genuinely encountered the creature describe experiences that go beyond folklore or entertainment. Encounters with something that inspired primal terror and left them convinced that the legends contain more truth than fiction. The Pine Barrens stand as one of America's great wilderness mysteries, a vast and largely unexplored region where the legendary and the real seem to coexist, where centuries of witness testimony suggest that something genuinely unknown inhabits the forests and swamps, and where the line between natural and supernatural remains tantalizingly unclear.
Whether the Jersey Devil is a biological creature awaiting scientific discovery, a supernatural entity immune to rational explanation, or some combination of both, the Pine Barrens remain a place where the unknown dwells just beyond the reach of modern understanding, reminding us that even in the densely populated northeastern United States, true wilderness and genuine mystery still exist.
Story 5. Resurrection Cemetery, Chicago's vanishing hitchhiker. Along Archer Avenue in Justice, Illinois, just outside Chicago's city limits, stands Resurrection Cemetery, a sprawling Catholic graveyard that has been the site of one of America's most famous and persistently reported phantom hitchhiker encounters. The ghost known as Resurrection Mary
has been seen by hundreds of witnesses over nearly 90 years, making her one of the most frequently encountered and thoroughly documented apparitions in American paranormal history. Resurrection Mary is not merely a local legend or urban myth, but a phenomenon supported by multiple credible witnesses, including police officers, business owners, and ordinary citizens who had no knowledge of the legend before their encounters. The consistency of witness descriptions across decades, the physical evidence left behind after certain encounters, and the continuing nature of the sightings elevate Resurrection Mary from folklore to one of the most compelling cases of genuine paranormal activity in America. The identity of Resurrection Mary. While the ghost is universally known as Resurrection Mary, her actual identity remains a matter of speculation and debate among researchers. Several theories have been proposed, each supported by historical evidence and witness descriptions. Mary Bregovy. The most commonly accepted theory identifies Resurrection Mary as Mary Bregovy, a young Polish-American woman who died in an automobile accident in 1934 after leaving a dance at the O. Henry Ballroom, later the Willowbrook Ballroom. According to this account, Mary was killed when the car in which she was riding struck a barrier along Archer Avenue. She was buried in Resurrection Cemetery, wearing a white dress and dancing shoes, the outfit in which she appears to witnesses. Mary Miskowski. Another theory identifies the ghost as Mary Miskowski, who died in 1930 at age 13. Some researchers favor this identification because of the youthful appearance witnesses consistently describe, though the young age at death makes some details of the legend, such as dancing at nightclubs, historically problematic. Multiple Marys. Some researchers speculate that Resurrection Mary might actually be a composite of multiple young women named Mary who died in automobile accidents along Archer Avenue and were buried in Resurrection Cemetery, with their collective tragic histories combining into a single legendary figure. Unknown identity. The most unsettling possibility is that Resurrection Mary's true identity has never been determined, and that her ghost represents someone whose death was never properly documented or whose grave is unmarked, leaving her to eternally seek recognition and assistance from the living. Regardless of her true identity, the spirit known as Resurrection Mary has been encountered so frequently and described so consistently that she has become one of America's most famous ghosts, with her story serving as the archetypal phantom hitchhiker tale.
The classic encounters. Resurrection Mary encounters typically follow a consistent pattern that has been repeated in dozens of documented cases. A driver, usually a young man, is traveling along Archer Avenue late at night when he sees a young woman walking alone on the roadside or standing at a bus stop near Resurrection Cemetery. The woman appears to be in her late teens or early 20s, with blonde hair and striking blue eyes, wearing a white party dress and white dancing shoes, formal attire inappropriate for walking alone at night. Concerned for the woman's safety, the driver stops and offers her a ride. She accepts,
speaking softly or sometimes not at all, and provides either no destination or indicates she needs to go somewhere along Archer Avenue. Her presence in the vehicle is accompanied by an unusual coldness and sometimes a faint scent described as rose perfume mixed with something indefinably unsettling. As the car approaches Resurrection Cemetery, the woman suddenly becomes agitated, asking or sometimes demanding to be let out immediately. If the driver complies and stops near the cemetery gates, the woman exits the vehicle and walks toward the cemetery, disappearing as she reaches or passes through the iron gates. Drivers who look back find no trace of the woman, though some report seeing a figure in white moving among the gravestones. In some versions of the encounter, drivers who refuse to stop watch in horror as the woman vanishes from their moving vehicle, simply ceasing to exist while they're looking directly at her. These witnesses are typically left in states of profound shock, struggling to process the impossible experience they've just witnessed. Physical evidence and law enforcement involvement. What elevates Resurrection Mary encounters beyond typical ghost stories is the physical evidence left behind and the involvement of credible witnesses, including law enforcement officers. The Burned Gates Incident, 1976. In August 1976, a Chicago police officer responded to a report of a young woman trapped behind the locked gates of Resurrection Cemetery. When he arrived, he found the gates closed and locked, but discovered that two of the iron bars had been bent and showed what appeared to be handprints seared into the metal, as if someone with burning hot hands had gripped the bars trying to escape. The Archdiocese of Chicago initially claimed the marks were caused by a truck backing into the gates, but this explanation was contradicted by the pattern of damage and the appearance of the marks. The burned and bent bars were documented by photographs and became physical evidence of apparent supernatural activity. The bars were eventually removed and, according to some accounts, are held in private collections, though the Archdiocese has never publicly addressed their current location. Police witness accounts. Multiple Chicago area police officers have reported encounters with Resurrection Mary while on patrol. These accounts are particularly credible because the witnesses are trained observers who had no reason to fabricate stories that might damage their professional reputations. Officers have reported picking up a young woman matching Mary's description, only to have her vanish from their patrol cars as they approached the cemetery.
Others have reported seeing a woman in white walking along Archer Avenue at night, disappearing when they stopped to offer assistance or investigate potential public safety concerns. Taxi driver encounters. Chicago taxi drivers, particularly those working night shifts in the southern suburbs, have collectively reported dozens of Resurrection Mary encounters. Some drivers have refused to pick up passengers near Resurrection Cemetery after dark, convinced from personal experience or the accounts of colleagues that doing so risks a supernatural encounter. These taxi drivers report that Mary appears as a normal fare, provides a destination, and engages in limited conversation before vanishing from the vehicle without warning. Drivers are typically left with no payment and no explanation, though some report finding white rose petals on the seat where Mary sat. The dance hall encounters.
Some of the most detailed Resurrection Mary encounters involve witnesses who meet her at dance halls and social venues before she reveals her supernatural nature. Young men report meeting an attractive blonde woman at dance halls along Archer Avenue, dancing with her for hours and offering her a ride home at the end of the night. Mary accepts. They drive together toward her supposed home, and she vanishes as they approach Resurrection Cemetery, leaving the confused and terrified driver to realize he has been dancing with a ghost. These dance hall encounters mirror the circumstances of the historical Mary's death, dying after leaving a dance, and suggest that Mary's spirit may be eternally repeating her final night of life, attending dances and attempting to return home only to vanish before reaching safety. The Willowbrook Ballroom, formerly the O. Henry Ballroom, located near Resurrection Cemetery, has become particularly associated with Resurrection Mary sightings. Multiple witnesses report seeing a woman matching Mary's description at the ballroom, always alone and often sad or wistful in demeanor, disappearing when approached or when the evening ends. Variations and associated phenomena. While most Resurrection Mary encounters follow the classic hitchhiker pattern, some reports include variations or additional supernatural elements. The running woman. Some witnesses report seeing Mary not standing at roadside seeking rides, but running desperately along Archer Avenue as if fleeing from something or trying to reach a destination before some deadline expires. These witnesses describe Mary as appearing panicked, her white dress flowing behind her as she runs at impossible speeds. The accident replay. Several witnesses have reported seeing what appears to be the actual accident that killed Mary, with a vintage automobile crashing along Archer Avenue and a figure in white being thrown from the vehicle, only to have the entire scene vanish when the witness stops to offer assistance. Multiple apparitions. On rare occasions, witnesses report seeing not one, but multiple figures in white near Resurrection Cemetery, suggesting either that Mary is not alone in her eternal unrest, or that the cemetery is home to other restless spirits who manifest in similar ways. Cemetery activity. Groundskeepers and visitors to Resurrection Cemetery have reported supernatural activity within the cemetery itself, including the appearance of a blonde woman in white moving among the graves, mysterious footprints in snow that lead to or from no apparent source, and the sensation of being watched by unseen presences while visiting grave sites. Modern encounters and continuing activity. Resurrection Mary sightings have continued into the 21st century, with modern witnesses equipped with cell phones and cameras documenting encounters that mirror those reported for nearly 90 years. Recent reports include smartphone videos showing a woman in white walking along Archer Avenue who vanishes when the camera zooms in for a closer look, though skeptics note that such videos are easily faked and should be viewed with appropriate caution. Social media has enabled real-time reporting of Resurrection Mary sightings, with witnesses posting accounts immediately after their encounters and sometimes coordinating with other people who report seeing Mary the same night in different locations along Archer Avenue.
The continuing nature of sightings, with no apparent decrease in frequency despite changing technology and social conditions, suggests that Resurrection Mary represents genuine supernatural activity rather than merely a cultural legend that should have faded with changing times. Theories and explanations. Researchers have proposed various theories to explain the Resurrection Mary phenomenon. Residual haunting.
Some paranormal researchers believe Mary represents a residual haunting, a kind of psychic recording replaying itself periodically, showing Mary's final journey home on the night of her death. However, this theory struggles to explain Mary's apparent ability to interact intelligently with witnesses and adapt to changing circumstances. Intelligent spirit. Others believe Mary is a conscious spirit trapped between worlds, unable to complete her final journey home and eternally seeking help from the living. This theory explains her interactive behavior and her apparent distress when approaching the cemetery. Cultural phenomenon. Skeptics argue that Resurrection Mary is primarily a cultural legend perpetuated through suggestion and misidentification, with witnesses seeing ordinary hitchhikers or confused pedestrians and interpreting their experiences through the lens of the famous legend. However, this theory doesn't explain the physical evidence like the burned cemetery gates or the consistent witness descriptions across decades before the legend was widely known. Psychic imprint. Some researchers propose that traumatic deaths can create psychic imprints on locations, with particularly powerful impressions manifesting as interactive apparitions that seem to possess consciousness and intent. According to this theory, Mary's violent death created such a strong psychic impression that it continues to manifest along her final route. Today, Resurrection Cemetery remains one of Chicago's most visited paranormal locations, with tour buses regularly stopping near the gates to share Mary's story. The cemetery and Archer Avenue have become pilgrimage sites for paranormal enthusiasts, with some visitors hoping to encounter Mary firsthand. Whether Mary represents the genuine spirit of a young woman who died tragically, a psychic recording replaying a past trauma, or a cultural legend that has taken on its own life, her story has become an integral part of Chicago folklore and American ghost lore generally. The persistence of encounters across nearly 90 years, the involvement of credible witnesses, including law enforcement, and the physical evidence like the burned cemetery gates, all suggest that something genuinely supernatural occurs along Archer Avenue. Resurrection Mary has become not just Chicago's most famous ghost, but one of America's most thoroughly documented and consistently encountered apparitions. Her story serves as a reminder that some spirits may be trapped between worlds, eternally seeking to complete interrupted journeys, find their way home, or simply be recognized and remembered by the living. Whether Mary will ever find the peace that has eluded her for 9 decades remains one of Chicago's most enduring mysteries.
Story 6. The Whaley House, San Diego's officially haunted mansion. In the heart of San Diego's historic Old Town stands a beautiful 2-story brick mansion that holds the unique distinction of being one of only 2 houses in California to be officially designated as haunted by the United States Department of Commerce. The Whaley House, built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, has been the site of so much documented supernatural activity over the past 165 years that it has earned recognition from both government agencies and paranormal research organizations as one of America's most genuinely haunted locations. The Whaley House is remarkable not just for the volume and variety of paranormal activity reported there, but for the quality of the witnesses who have experienced supernatural phenomena. The encounters include testimony from historical society directors, museum curators, tour guides, law enforcement officers, and thousands of visitors who have experienced unexplained phenomena that cannot be easily dismissed or explained through conventional means. The house and its builder. Thomas Whaley was a successful businessman who arrived in San Diego in 1851 during the California Gold Rush era.
He built his family's home on the site of what had been San Diego's first public gallows, where several convicted criminals had been executed by hanging during the late 1840s. This decision to build a family residence on execution grounds would prove to have lasting supernatural consequences. The house Whaley constructed was one of the finest residences in early San Diego, a substantial two-story brick structure that incorporated the latest architectural features and amenities. The building served not only as the Whaley family home, but also at various times as a courthouse, theater, school, and commercial space, creating layers of human activity and emotional energy that may have contributed to its intense paranormal atmosphere. The Whaley family experienced significant tragedy within the house's walls. Thomas and Anna Whaley's youngest son, Thomas Jr., died in the house in 1858 at just 18 months old, possibly from scarlet fever. Their daughter Violet committed suicide in the house in 1885 at age 22, shooting herself after a failed marriage. Her death was particularly traumatic for the family and appears to have created one of the house's most active spiritual presences. Anna Whaley died in the house in 1913 after living there for over 50 years, having experienced both great joy and profound sorrow within its walls. These family tragedies, combined with the house's construction on execution grounds and its use for various public purposes over the decades, created ideal conditions for the development of intense paranormal activity. Yankee Jim Robinson, the executed criminal. The most frequently reported male spirit at the Whaley House is believed to be James Yankee Jim Robinson, a tall criminal who was hanged on the property in 1852, 5 years before Thomas Whaley built his house on the site. Robinson's execution was particularly botched and cruel. Because of his unusual height, over 6 feet tall, at a time when average height was considerably less, the rope was too short and the drop insufficient to break his neck cleanly. Instead, Robinson strangled slowly, taking several agonizing minutes to die, while the crowd watched in horror. His final moments were marked by intense suffering and probably rage at the incompetent execution, emotions that appear to have imprinted themselves permanently on the location.
Witnesses report encountering Yankee Jim's spirit throughout the house, particularly on the upper floor where the gallows stood. The phenomena associated with his presence include heavy footsteps crossing the second floor, described as the gait of a large, heavy man walking slowly and deliberately. Visitors report the sensation of a noose or hands around their throats, particularly when standing in areas where the gallows were located, sometimes accompanied by difficulty breathing or feelings of panic and suffocation. The apparition of a tall man in frontier-era clothing is often seen in peripheral vision, who disappears when directly observed. An atmosphere of anger or hostility pervades specific areas of the house, suggesting that Robinson's spirit retains the rage he must have felt at his botched execution. The Whaley family spirits. Multiple members of the Whaley family appear to have remained in their beloved home after death, creating a complex family dynamic that continues in the spiritual realm. Thomas Whaley's spirit is described as a protective presence that seems to continue overseeing his property and ensuring the house is properly maintained. Witnesses report seeing a well-dressed gentleman in 19th century attire moving through the house,
checking rooms as if performing an inspection. His presence is typically described as benign or neutral rather than threatening. Anna Whaley, Thomas's wife, is one of the most active spirits in the house, with witnesses reporting seeing her apparition throughout the building. She appears as a small woman in period dress, sometimes sitting in her favorite chair, other times moving through rooms as if still performing her household duties. Anna's presence is accompanied by the scent of lavender perfume, her favorite fragrance in life. Violet Whaley, the daughter who committed suicide in the house, manifests as a young woman in 1880s clothing, often appearing sad or distressed. Her presence is particularly strong in the areas of the house where she spent her final days and where she died. Witnesses report feelings of overwhelming sadness when encountering Violet's spirit, as if her emotional anguish at her failed marriage and hopeless situation has imprinted itself on the environment. Thomas Jr., the youngest Whaley child, who died as an infant, manifests through the sounds of a baby crying and the sensation of small hands tugging at visitors' clothing. Some witnesses report seeing toys move by themselves in areas where the child would have played. The Whaley family's beloved pet terrier also appears to have remained loyal even in death. Visitors frequently report hearing the sound of small dog paws clicking across the wooden floors, the jingle of a collar, and even feeling something brush against their legs when nothing visible is there. Modern paranormal activity. The Whaley House opened as a museum in 1960, and since then, thousands of visitors have reported unexplained experiences. Tour guides working in the house have documented encounters with such consistency that many refuse to work alone in the building, particularly after dark. Common experiences reported by visitors include sudden temperature drops of 20 degrees or more in specific rooms, the distinct sounds of a piano playing when the antique piano in the music room hasn't been touched, doors that lock and unlock themselves despite modern security systems, and the overwhelming scent of cigars, perfume, or bread baking when no source can be identified.
Photography in the house often produces anomalous results. Visitors have captured unexplained orbs, mists, and occasionally what appear to be full human figures in period clothing that weren't visible when the photographs were taken. Electronic equipment frequently malfunctions inside the house, with cameras, phones, and recording devices draining their batteries within minutes or shutting down entirely. Perhaps most unnerving are the reports of direct physical contact. Numerous visitors have reported being touched by invisible hands, feeling their clothing tugged, or experiencing the sensation of someone walking directly through them. A cold, tingling sensation that leaves witnesses deeply shaken. The official haunting designation. What sets the Whaley House apart from countless other allegedly haunted locations is its official recognition. The United States Department of Commerce, through the Travel and Tourism Administration, officially listed the Whaley House as haunted, one of only 2 homes in California to receive such a designation. This wasn't based on folklore or legend, but on documented testimony of credible witnesses and the consistent nature of reported phenomena over more than 1 century. The house remains one of San Diego's most popular tourist attractions, drawing paranormal investigators, and curious visitors from around the world. Whether the spirits of the Whaley family truly remain in their beloved home, whether Yankee Jim Robinson continues to haunt the site of his agonizing death, or whether some other explanation exists for the phenomena, one thing is certain. Something extraordinary occurs within the walls of the Whaley House that defies easy explanation. Tonight, as darkness falls over Old Town San Diego, the lights in the Whaley House will dim, the tourists will depart, and the spirits, whatever they may be, will have the mansion to themselves once more, walking the same halls they've walked for over a century, forever bound to the beautiful brick house that holds so many memories of life, death, and everything that lies between.